This is Festival Pass Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next. All right, folks, this is the Festival Pass Stories podcast. We are, as always, presented by Dos Hombres, the artisanal mezcal, the artisanal award-winning mezcal, I should say, meant to be shared. And why wouldn't you? Created by Aaron Paul and Brian Cranston. Have a drink with us, not on us. We're not buying just yet, but have a drink with us at doshombres.com/delivery. And you ever wanted to have the opportunity, I should say, you ever wanted to have the opportunity to invest in a product early that could be the next Airbnb? Learn why entrepreneurs and celebrities with exits approaching $10 billion have already invested in Festival Pass. Go to invest.festivalpass.com to learn more. Okay. Now, folks, today is a very special day in the studio because we are with an artist who is actually recording while we're recording this interview. That's amazing. This has never happened. This is Festival Pass Stories history. Ladies and gentlemen, not only say hello to Joe Hertler, but also say hello to Joe Hertler and the Rainbow Seekers who are in the background. Joe, what's happening?
What's going on? How you guys doing?
Joe, I would say that we're all seeking rainbows. Seems to be a state of mind. But why can you and your band make that claim more than anyone else?
The rainbow is something off in the distance. It's ingraspable. It's often associated maybe with some buried treasure, but the treasure doesn't exist. A rainbow is meant to be beholden. This is something that appears after times of tumult or, boiling skies. It's just a symbol that maybe some good things are coming. It's a symbol that you need both the good and the bad, that they're of the same system. And that there is usually no pot of gold. It's a nice thing to focus on sometimes, but ultimately you should just kick back and appreciate a good view when you got one.
Yeah, and look, as someone of Irish descent, I do appreciate the stereotype, the time-honored stereotype of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and the small leprechaun going to get it. So we're all seeking that. It's there. It could be there.
There could be a leprechaun. That is really... Now, the pot of gold might not be real, but the leprechaun, if there's one at the end of the rainbow.
Well, which one would you try and nab? Which one would you try and nab? The leprechaun or the pot of gold?
I mean, the leprechaun for sure. Just because that's, people, pot of gold, that's nice too. Money can buy you a lot of things, but there's something about maybe having a leprechaun living with you, maybe just being your friend when you're lonely, there's something really attractive about that.
I would think there'd be more value these days in owning having a leprechaun and saying, look what I have, more than an actual pot of gold. If it was a pot of crypto, which I have no idea what that would look like because it's all in the ether there, I think people might go for that. But if you had the opportunity to nab a leprechaun, trust me, you'd be on the late night show circuit. You'd be all over the country.
Yeah,
it would be incredible. And on that note, why do people say, this person is a unicorn instead of saying they're a leprechaun? I mean, they're both pretty rare, wouldn't you say?
I think maybe I guess it depends on which Dungeons and Dragons what rule book you're going off of. I mean, unicorns are really
how many sides are on your die?
Yeah, I think a unicorn doesn't necessarily desire tangible things as much as, say, a leprechaun. Leprechauns are kind of associated with just wanting to hoard their pot of gold, I think. But there's something a little bit more malevolent about a leprechaun versus a unicorn, which seems something that's just kind of divine entity.
There is definitely, I would say so. The leprechaun does not lend itself to that beauty and grace, perhaps, of of a unicorn. And this is why we did the podcast today, because we want to talk about unicorns and leprechauns. All right. So back on planet Earth, you also make another claim that you could make a sprightly young groove doctor out of anyone. And I would like to see if you could make sprightly young groove doctor out of this. I don't want to say middle-aged guy, but getting there.
Mhm.
How do you do that?
Well, the point of music is, demystified. It's just entertainment at the end of the day, but you also hope people congregate, communicate, connect. I suppose maybe that's what a sprightly, like, young groove doctor is just someone who's like connected with the music, connected with the people around them, doing things that are good for humans to do.
Humans and leprechauns, or we'll just stay with the humans now.
I imagine, leprechauns probably have like intrinsic, communal needs as well. I'm not really sure, but I imagine they do. I've never seen a girl leprechaun, so
that's true.
That's a thing.
That is true. I never even thought about it that way. Not even the Lucky Charms guy had a girlfriend. That could have been a good spin-off of the cereal, but he was just about making not making mushrooms, but making marshmallows. That's what that was all about. So then all of these sprightly young groove doctors come together to form the Rainbow Seekers. Take me back to that process. How did this band come together?
We just all met in college, really. The story's not particularly glamorous, but half of us went to Central Michigan University. The other half went to Michigan State. We just were hanging out. There was kind of a local music scene that sort of included a couple different universities in Michigan, and there was some really solid leadership in that community too that I think gave a lot of us scattered artists a little bit of direction, and also brought everyone closer together. And the band really kind of started through prior to like me meeting everyone. A couple of the guys were making hip hop beats for local rappers, and at some point I kind of jumped in on that, and that's really how we started hanging out musically.
So the Chippewas and the Spartans get together, and that's not like leprechauns and unicorns getting together. This is a totally different. I believe the Central Michigan is a Chippewa. Am I correct?
Yeah, and we're all humans too. So like,
there's the other side.
We were able to communicate with each other, and most speak English, and
that's good.
It's good, yeah. I wouldn't have worked otherwise.
So when did you know that this band was ready for prime time? That you guys are ready to really hit the road? Look, this is Festival Pass Stories. There's nothing we like talking about more than music festivals. We're in prime music festival season right now. When did you look at the guys and say, get the tour bus ready, we're hitting the road?
I don't know if we were ready for it, but our second
Even
record
better.
came. Yeah, we definitely weren't ready. It still sometimes feels like you're not ready for it. It's always a state of wanting to improve, and you learn a lot on the way. But it was at some point during our second record, we kind of had a fling with the Universal Music Group for a while. We had signed a record deal. Up until that point, it was pretty casual to some extent. We were highly unprofessional. But we've been playing for a while, and it kind of put together a pretty solid, especially local following in Michigan and a few other places. So I think our manager sort of came from the school of you put your boots on and go wade through the mud and just play a ton of shows. And we played a lot of shows, a lot. It probably wasn't the most efficient way to grow a band, but at the time, that was still what people did. And looking back on it, it was a good thing. Like, we really got to cut our chops and cut them in, the way that a lot of really like almost like jam bands do. We're not necessarily a jam band, but they often take a similar approach of just really hitting the pavement, playing and playing and playing, and putting like some hard work in.
So when you fast forwarded a little there to the second album, let's go back to the first album.
Yeah, we weren't touring during the first record.
And now when did you know that was time to put some things down? You guys were playing some local gigs and you had some original tunes and you're like, now it's time for the album.
Yeah. I was just playing solo acoustic stuff, and Ryan, who's sitting behind me, I don't know if you can see him.
Ryan was your first official bandmate, correct?
Yeah. And he had his own band in college. I had a couple songs that we had sort of worked on for another acoustic project. And at some point, a few of the guys in the scene just started laying down tracks. And that's really kind of where the band came from. And that was our first time trying to record together. And it was all self-produced. We recorded it in like the most disgusting, moldy basement of all time. Like it's just a joke, really.
Which
but
is
it was
where
fun.
every single great band was started.
Yeah, just like, it was a Michigan basement, so there's like, like a dirt floor and just like bugs everywhere. And I used to like sleep down there too. It was ridiculous. But yeah, there was a small studio set up, and two guys in particular that were running it. One of which was one of the founding members and our bassist for a really long time. He produced all of it, and it was a really simple kind of like a folk rock record. And we like wore suspenders at the time and stuff, but it like got us started. And honestly, like listening back to it, it's like kind of crazy that it worked. It's like, I think it sounds good.
It's gotta be fun. It's gotta be fun at this point,
good.
right? To look back at that, and you say, look at this marriage of people that we knew that were like laying down some beats. And then, Ryan and I had our own bands. We were writing our own stuff. We brought all that together in this stinky old basement, and we put out something world class.
I don't know if it was world class, but we think highly of it. And, people listened to it at the time. It was a very memorable experience. And I think the songs that we made were, there was no real intention behind them except to create and to share. And, kind of felt like it was, there was just no intention with it. There are no expectations, which I think can lay the groundwork for, just for lack of better words, like pure art.
Absolutely. But without those intentions, something happened there, because you said you had a flirtation or a bit of a contract even with Universal, the biggest labels in the world. How did that come about?
They just reached out to us. So there was a couple reps that were working at Universal, that were from Michigan. And I know some of those Michigan-based reps had been scouting for just a Michigan band, something that maybe was worth trying to elevate. And they chose us, and it was actually really great. It was a small subsidiary that was very much focused on like college promotion. And we were with them for probably like a year, 1 to 2 years, maybe. And then they, like at that time, streaming was still like kind of this new thing, and record labels hadn't kind of figured out how to monetize what they do in relation to streaming service. It's just, they didn't know how to use the streaming services yet to make money. And, Universal laid off like all of its distribution. So all the people that we were working with, some of them who had been in the record industry for, 20, 30 years and were quite established, were out of jobs or working other things, and, or had to find new careers. So like we were just kind of like stuck there in the ether, wondering, with a record that had just come out and there was like no promotion. It just like fell off a cliff, basically. Yeah, it was crazy. It sucked. It was a huge letdown, especially because leading up to that, things were looking great. Like, oh crap, this is going to work out. So yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes. We did the best we could, and the people that worked for us, did the best that they could. And sometimes you just get, sometimes things just don't work out, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's like we're signed to an imprint on Universal. We're rocking and rolling. We got a second album out, and then the industry steps in, and this has happened a lot over the last. I mean, the last like 25 years in the music business. There are just so many. I have heard all these different stories. People that were working at Epic Records and so on, and they just cleaned house, and it's just the whole world changed, especially after when streaming kind of started out there.
Yep.
So, what year was this when you guys had this deal? Was this mid like early 2000s?
No. It was later than that. Maybe 2015.
Okay.
2016. I'm just kind of guessing there. Sometime around then.
So it's like contract or not, it's like Universal's just like, oh, well, this is how it goes in the business. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I felt bad for a lot of those people that worked for us were like really good. I mean, like they were cool people. They were true. A lot of people, for all the bad rap that the record industry gets, most of the people are like true music fans. Like they love music. They got into it because they love music. And a lot of them went to other labels, and I'm sure most of them are now re-employed in the music industry as things have picked up, but it's just how it goes.
So then it's time to promote the album on your own. You guys have to get creative, figure out ways to make this happen. Do you start reaching out to music festivals and saying, we got a new album, we're ready to hit the road, we want to be there?
Yeah.
Or is it the other way?
I don't think we really knew. I'm not sure if we did a lot of like creative stuff to promote it. It's just like what you typically do. Put stuff up on socials, you spam it all the time, you make unique content to try to convey the message that you have new music, pay for ads, and then you go on the road and you repeat that process like over and over for a couple of years until it's the end of the record cycle and you got a new record that's done and ready to be pushed.
And that's what you guys are doing right now.
No, we actually just finished one. So our first single comes out on Friday, which is pretty exciting. But this is just my project studio. So my guitar player, Micah, and Ryan, both founding members of the band, we try to meet at least a couple times a month to just work on whatever. Actually, today we're working on a track for another band. But yeah, it's a nice little spot.
But when it came to the festival world, I've seen that you guys have played some of the biggest festivals out there. How did Bonnaroo come about?
How did Bonnaroo come around? I am not sure. It's typical stuff. We had an agent. It's really your agents just submit you to festivals, and if you get lucky, they'll say yes. And I mean, especially just being like from Michigan, it's hard to like. There's not a lot of selling points on a band like us. I think on paper. I don't know what you do, but yeah, our agent just pitched us. They had a relationship with the Bonnaroo talent buying team, and we got it. It was like we played super early. It was like 105 degrees. It was so hot. We were fortunately on like a shaded stage, which is awesome. Thank God.
Where the fans really were fun. Not shaded.
They were too. Not all of it, but there was a bunch of sections that were shaded, which was pretty cool. It was a smaller stage, but it ended up being really fun. Actually, in the band that played after us, they're called Lawrence, and I've been friends with them ever since. We've gone on tour with them a number of times, and it was a long time, and I guess not that long ago, but it was cool. I stayed for the weekend too. Caught Death Cab, and I think like Pearl Jam played. That was like. I thought like one of the most awesome experiences musically I've ever seen, which I loved Pearl Jam growing up, but to see it live was like, whoa, I see why they're like one of the biggest bands in the world. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Eddie Vedder's A Force of Nature, Stone Gospel.
Unreal. Yeah. Unbelievably good.
And do you prefer playing a larger festival like that, or are you guys more of small indie festival, more intimate crowd?
It totally depends. we've played bigger festivals where it's been like kind of a tough crowd or you got a tough time slot. And we've played other big festivals where it's like the most slamming ever. And the same thing can go for the indie stuff. It's really hard. They're just totally different things. And if you're coming from out of state, you don't necessarily have like a big following in that area. You just never know. But there's also been many times where we've showed up to places. We had, some, smaller 5,000 person, festival or whatever. And you're on some side stage and it ends up just being like ultra rad and people are enthusiastic. And again, that connection is forged between audience and other audience members in the band and this environment as a whole.
And speaking of forging these relationships with the audience, you're saying, well, I don't know. Somebody pitched us and we got in. We don't have much of a story yet. There's a big story that I saw about you guys that has to do with props. And you seem to do a lot with props from piñatas to confetti to fog to flowers to drum solos to strobe lights to Thor to sword battles.
Yeah.
You're saying anything goes is the prop the prop phrase for the Rainbow Seekers. So how did this interaction start? Did a fan start this, or did you guys just show up when you're like, what we're gonna do today? We're gonna break some swords out there. We're gonna have some fun with the crowd.
A lot of couple different places. People bring sunflowers. That was started by fans. They just bring big sunflowers. I don't know how this stuff starts. It just does. It just kind of like happens. Even like the rose, like I don't know if I have a memory of how I decided to take that and use it on stage. Like I remember our saxophone player purchasing it and it was probably like nearby during that song one time in its during Old Love in its infancy. And I picked it up and started tossing it around. That's always been kind of that way. Like one time I came out in like a nest, and like I hatched from an egg. Yeah,
like you had a gigantic nest around you.
Just kind of the trick is just don't think if things are a good idea or a bad idea. Just do it and sell it if you're going to do it, whatever it is. If you sell it, not like just convey the intention behind that authentically, even if there really is no intention other than just there is an intention behind it. It's to elevate things, to make it feel a little larger than life, to kind of help people remove themselves from whatever place they may be in, regardless if they want to be there or not. Just kind of makes things a little bit more magical realism. I guess it's a literary term, but make things a little bit more cool. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, that's what music is all about. That's why we go to these concerts, for the great escape from the accounting job and from whatever job that you have during the week that you want to get out there. And experience all these things. Now, do you encourage your fans? You're like, the show is Saturday. Don't forget, the theme is X-Men. Come dressed as your fan. Do you put out a theme to them, or do you let
Sometimes.
it? Okay, so give me an example of that. Like, what if you put out a theme? Like, how did you think it would turn out, and then how did it turn out?
We did a tinfoil show once. We told everyone to just like bring a bunch of tinfoil. We covered like an entire stage just with tinfoil, and it was like so hot. The lights bouncing, unreal. But
I hope that wasn't at Bonnaroo.
People showed up wearing like tinfoil hats. That was a long time ago. It was a venue where we were able to do that, and it was fun.
So the metal detector was a big problem outside of the show.
I don't think there's metal detectors in this venue. It was like a bring all the metal in that you want kind of venue. It was a hole in the ground kind of venue. Perfect place to play music.
not a heavy metal band. In fact, light metal, aluminum. So very nice and light metal.
I don't think aluminum goes off in, maybe it does. I don't know if it does. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But
and you would, speaking of the style of the band, how would you describe the current style of the band's music? You mentioned folk stuff earlier, but more funk than folk.
We just kind of jump around. I would kind of say it's like Dave Matthews meets Flaming Lips meets like Death Cab. It's a weird combination, probably a little bit cringy to say it that way, but yeah, there's kind of like a foundation of like almost folk songwriting, but with arrangements that are very focused on the groove. Yeah, there's some funkier elements. Not everything is that way, but we jump around a lot. There's a couple different genres that we play in, and depending on the song, it's kind of nice to feel a little bit liberated to use a genre or a particular sound to convey a feeling.
Yeah. And to convey that as well, convey how I was asking for a great description of the style of the band. And look, the best pitch meetings in the world have a line in it where somebody says, "It's The Godfather meets Star Wars." And you're like,
yeah,
go on, I'm listening. So you have to describe your style to be aspirational as well, to, to talk about some of the best bands out there, some of the biggest touring bands out there, with the Dave Matthews or Death Cab for Cutie. So it's absolutely, and I'm not as a big enough Death Cab for Cutie fan to call them just Death Cab, because I'm not on that level. So I have to call them by their full and proper names.
That's all good.
So you won't start throwing some trivia at me about them.
I won't throw any trivia.
So is there a show coming up right now where you have the fans coming with a theme? Obviously, the aluminum theme has been played. So what's the idea for the next show? You're dropping a song, you're dropping a new track on Friday. You want to get out there, promote it. How can you take the name of the song or the idea of the song and bring that into props to help get the message out there to everybody?
I don't know. I'm holding a guitar for that song, so there probably will be no prop play. I have been putting together. We haven't like executed it yet, but a lot of we're thinking about adding a projector live. So I've been putting a lot of just kind of footage together that's suiting to the songs, like almost these like triggerable music videos that we can, that will play throughout the course of the song that have scenes that you can hit a button, it'll change it up. But yeah, and like I said, there's like, I don't think I've ever really like thought like, oh, here's a song that we made, what prop would be suiting for it. It's just kind of, I think it has to just like happen, And as far as like the theme shows goes, they're fairly rare. We use them for like special events. They happen in Michigan. We don't do it all the time because, I think we could easily be like cornered as like a gimmick band, which we're not. These things we do are usually pretty sparing, or we do them sparingly, and they're usually for like special crowds of people who have been kind of know what we're about and been coming for, showing up for like a decade or so.
So the 5th album is coming out for the band now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the guys wanting more? How do you motivate them to get back in the studio? Or is it just you get out on the tour and you're like, we got to do this again? Is it self-motivation, or is it something that, that you really have to fire people up about?
No, I don't think it's a matter of motivation. I think some people kind of focus on motivation or rely on motivation, but like I'm a supremely unmotivated person and good at overcoming that, and just like, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to work on stuff because once I start, I'm going to just keep doing it. Like, and I think everyone's that way. It's like, we got a big tour coming up. Like, I'm going to miss some stuff back at home. Like, I won't be with my pets. Like, but it's work. It's like, it's our job. So it's,
Right.
not difficult in that
it's a
sense.
passion.
And it can be really
There's a
fun.
passion
Yeah.
for it, too.
I love doing it. And that like touring is, at least for me, it means if I go on a tour, it means I can go home and work on music. Which is what I really like doing. So, just with knowing like me getting to work on music or us getting to work on music in general is just like a nice, like, it's like a nice bonus of putting in the work.
Yeah, that's the cherry on top, is getting back into the studio. So you'd prefer to be in the studio creating new art than being on the road promoting that art?
They're totally different things. They're both, they're both necessary to
It's an ecosystem.
what we do. Yeah, they just need each other. I like being at home, but if I was like only at home in the studio, I'm gonna crave going out and ripping some shows too. Like it's a lot. It can be a lot of fun. I look forward to it.
And over the last 2 years, there was a lot of just being home in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you overcome that? And how did you stay connected to your fans?
I just worked on stuff. I did three things. I slept for about 6 hours a day. I play World of Warcraft, and then I work on music. Like that's what I did. I'd spend the mornings just working on tunes for maybe 6 to 8 hours, and I'd play World of Warcraft for 6 to 8 hours, which like that's never again. I got trapped in it, and it was awesome, but like never again. But
Yeah, this can't be real.
Yeah. It was a blast. But I just there was nothing to mourn. It's like, I mean, it did. It was like, oh gosh, maybe our careers are over now. Like I don't know what's going to happen. I was just asking the same questions that everyone else asks, but what are you going to do about it? Nothing except go to work.
Right. Right.
I'm just going to do what I'm going to do, and just weather the storm. And it worked out. Yeah. I thought it wasn't for a little bit, but it did.
So what was the first show coming out of the doldrums, or the, if you will, it's a good word for it. Or what was the most memorable show that you were like, oh yes, this is it. We're back.
The first one that I really kind of remember being like, hell yeah, we're back. It was in Nashville. It's a beautiful outdoor venue called Salvage Station. It was well attended. The pod seatings, obviously were a little strange at the time, and definitely detract from, in some way, undeniably, from the energy of the crowd. But nonetheless, like, the sound stage was good, and it just was fun. It was like, we lived, we survived COVID.
Yeah. And like 6 hours a day of World of Warcraft, those pod seatings, never again. They're never going to happen. So it was just a blip. It was just a blip.
Oh,
all right. So what's next for you guys? Now that it's all happening again, album 5 is here. I guess album 5 would be what's next for the band. What is the name of the album?
It's called Pursuit of Wonder. It's 3 EPs technically, but they'll all be smushed together in a record titled Pursuit of Wonder. But yeah, we've finished the music. It's mastered, label has it. And the first single's coming out really soon, and we're super excited. Things turned out really good, and the process of making it was long in a good way. Like I got to work on stuff I enjoyed working on for a really long time, and we had a huge selection of music to choose from. That was really cool. And a lot of people took their efforts and their talents and applied themselves and made a really cool thing that is the product, and uniquely the result of everyone trying their best.
Not bad. So how do we find you guys on the social media handles out there?
It's just at Joe Hertler. We have 2 TikToks. I just made another one that's at Joe Hertler. It was someone had taken the handle for a while, but I just got it back. But yeah, on TikTok, it's at Rainbow Seekers. Everywhere else, it's at Joe Hertler. And then I recently got at Joe Hertler on TikTok.
Okay. So TikTok is the best place to find you guys.
No, I'd say, Instagram probably, but we're pushing, I've been making a lot of content for TikTok, which has been super fun. I thought I'd hate it, but I actually found that I can be creative.
Turns out you're a TikToker. Maybe I will be.
I wouldn't say I'm one yet. I think I have to prove myself with it, but it's been fun learning to make video content.
Yeah. And they're easy to edit. Just pop them up there, 30-second videos, boom.
Yeah.
Premiere's not
incredible.
A ton of time.
I can still spend like 30 hours on like a 90-second video, especially if it's got like, if we're putting all the music together for it and stuff. Right. We did this, Sorry Miss Jackson, like an Outkast cover. We were just, I had hurt my foot and was like stuck in the hotel room at this festival. So I just like started putting this thing together because I had nothing else to do. But yeah, it ended up being like a 40-hour project. Sometimes they're simple. It's like, you can just plop it into Premiere, clip a couple things and you're like good to go. But man, I'm good at making it a lot more complicated for myself.
Yeah.
The juices get going though, you're just like, oh, I got this idea. I guess I got to pop my SD card out, set all the camera stuff up again. Oh man, I didn't hit record. That happens to me all the time. Be like, that was the take.
Yeah, I've done that 20 minutes into a podcast. I'm like, can we do the whole thing again? I forgot.
Yeah, I've done that. I was like doing a little bit of a podcast thing once, and it's heartbreaking. Did a whole episode once where it was just like, guys, I didn't hit record. Sucks.
Hey, what are you gonna do? But look, I know you've been very generous with your time. And once again, Joe's doing this. He took a break from recording with the band to record with us. So folks, check them out across all the social media, especially Instagram and TikTok at Joe Hertler. And check out the Rainbow Seekers and the new album coming out, new track dropping soon. Joe, thank you so much for your time. And friends, we will see you and we'll see Joe Hertler and the Rainbow Seekers out on the festival circuit. And we'll see you guys next time on Festival Pass Stories. Joe, thanks again.
Thanks, Pat.
This is Festival Pass Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next.